just take another second to swallow and wash down. Let us begin. Kent Jackson has given us a wonderful agenda here, which tells us that we're going to welcome, have opening remarks and words of encouragement from the mayor. That's a heavy burden when you're facing a budget retreat. And I think I've probably said in the past, just enough knowledge of this topic to consider myself dangerous. After I graduated from college with a degree in history, I went back and took accounting classes because I discovered I couldn't do anything with my history degree. And so I understand the debits and credits just enough to be dangerous. So, but this is a wonderful time to approach our budget and hear from our staff. I was telling Kent yesterday that this is a wonderful opportunity to interact with staff. You know, this peculiar organizational methodology we have where we don't have a great deal to do with staff most of the time. And it's wonderful to hear from them once a year, other than just the context of business as ordinary, and to hear their wish list and their views of what we've done and where we might go. And so we will have our finance director join us in a little while. And I guess that with that, I will just turn it over to Kent Jackson, our interim town manager. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. So today is, I think for all of us, today is an exciting time. We're encouraged by the opportunity to be together and talk about these very important topics that you'll be hearing today. So I think that is great. I think it's going to be a great day. Thanks to a number of people who've done a lot of hard work to bring this together today. Terry, of course, is always keeping us organized and on time and everything together. So thanks, Terry, for all your work. The same goes for Colby, and then most especially Heather, as you know, does the majority of the work to organize, compile of the budget. So she will be here shortly. I will just kind of talking about the agenda, like comment and clarification. So the clarification is in the general fund discussion. I inadvertently, when the last revision, left out Teresa Thompson, our downtown development director, but she surely will be here to talk about the downtown program. So she will be here for the general fund discussion. So aside from starting timely, and we certainly want to end timely today, but in between those marks, I think we will be flexible to the course the discussion wants to take. I mean, we certainly have some imperatives and materials that we need to cover. Aside from that, though, we want to be flexible and follow the discussion. I think, you can see visually, I think the morning portion is going to be heavier this year. So we're certainly trying to stay on the target for our lunch break, because that is something Carrie has planned at a time. But we may not get through all the general fund items prior to that. But if we don't, we'll just come back to that after the lunch break. So with that kind of said, I'll begin to talk about what you're going to be seeing and hearing in a lot more detail from Heather this morning. Some of the highlights or themes of this year's budget. Certainly the kind of departmental concentrated discussion today. We'll talk about public safety, where we'll have Chief Johnson talk about the police priorities. We'll have Chief Griffin talk about the fire department priorities. And followed by, we will have Katie Keller to talk about the Parks and Recreation budget and priorities there. As I mentioned, Teresa will be joining us to talk about downtown development and that new department within the town. Certainly, there has been a lot of work in all those areas over this past year, so we're excited to hear from those departments. And for our engineering departments, I'll be talking about some trends and needs as it relates to kind of keeping up with growth. They're a little bit different this year. And then as in every year, and we do have a robust group of capital improvement projects to talk about when we get to that portion of the program. And today we will be presenting. We'll be presenting a draft budget for. We'll see and receive overnight is a balanced budget proposal. Heather and I will also be discussing some proposals, initiatives that at this point have not found their way into the budget, but that we're clearly aware of. And the budget is certainly a kind of work in progress to the adoption point. So, there's still hopefully opportunities beyond today, adjustments, final adjustments. And, your input and feedback will be critical in making adjustments. I will talk about another theme this year that we made some inroads on, but not as much as I would like for us to have is public engagement. So when I came into the process last month, we set up a citizen survey, just asking some kind of basic questions about what they were interested in and what's important to them as far as the town is concerned. A question about their feelings or impressions about the services they receive for the utility rates that we charge, and those type of questions. We didn't have a formal process in place to launch that. We did do somewhat of a pilot, what I call a pilot test for that during the Creek Week events we had. We did have some of those budget surveys available for the public. It was, the few residents that kind of took those away with them seemed very appreciative. So, so we're looking forward in the budget for FY 24-25 of enhancing that public engagement process, kicking it off in the kind of early part of the budget so that it's certainly more meaningful and complete. So that's something we're looking forward to for next budget cycle. I think as we're some people are gathering here, I think we can talk about Citizens Academy. Just briefly, we did have the first session of that last night. So congratulations to Colby for that. All the work that he's put into setting that program up, organizing it, getting people registered, started to come to fruition last night. Colby, you want to just talk about it briefly?
Yeah, just very quickly. We had 20 registrants. We had 15 people actually show up. We're expecting 16 in future weeks. One just had an unavoidable issue, a family issue. We had a lot of great engagement, a lot of great questions. We had to do a hard stop at 9. We probably could have kept right on going. And we were discussing finance, which can always be the most exciting of topics. So I think we can see a lot of great results out of the program.
And just so the schedule, Colby, is to wrap the first Citizens Academy up in May.
It would be 8 weeks from last night, so May 20 something.
So there again, we have very positive participation and feedback from those that attended and participated last night. Kind of kind of jump ahead a little bit to talking about, later, we're going to be talking and more extensively about some of our current capital projects. Shared with a couple of you individually, but we did receive some good news yesterday from the state Division of Water Infrastructure about our force main loans. If you recall, we had received the news in February that we were awarded a loan of 10.5 million. So yesterday we received the letter of intent to fund, and it came with a 0% interest.
Fantastic.
Which we were very pleased about. And that is not only applied to the new SRF, it's also applied to the previous SRF.
Hey.
The town received. So, I was talking with Kyle, I think that results in about a $7 million, savings.
Wow.
So, certainly that doesn't get us all the way home, so to speak, but it certainly was very good news as far as being able to support funding for that project. And I did almost immediately, I reached out to Sanford and let them know that, because as you know, they are pursuing funding along with us for that project. So anyway, so that's trending in a good direction.
Wonderful.
So, good morning, Chief Griffin. Thanks for joining us this morning. We are anticipating Heather's arrival here very shortly, and after her opening kind of budget highlights, we'll get and public safety portion. So maybe for the benefit of the any public maybe tuning in, I'll introduce our staff that are here this morning. So we have, of course, Carrie Bailey, who is our town clerk. We have Colby Sawyer, who's our public information and emergency manager. We have Daryl Griffin, chief of our fire department. Daryl's colleague, I'm not.
Chief.
Okay, good morning.
Sigh.
Side Richardson, yes, sir.
We have Reese Thompson, our downtown development director. Katie Keller, our Parks and Recreation director, and Chief Shorty Johnson with the police department. So we look forward to hearing from all these folks a little bit later. So at that point, I think those are most of the preliminary kind of remarks that I have, Mayor. Certainly, if there is any initial kind of questions about the program today or anything of that nature, certainly have an opportunity to talk about those.
Are there any organizational questions by the board this morning? Do we want to then be at ease until Heather gets here? I know that our fifth commissioner, Pamela Baldwin, is tuning in, I believe. Is she already on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. We'll just pause for maybe 5 minutes.
Good.
We'll welcome our fearless lead, finance leader, Heather Meacham, and whenever you get ready, we'll give you a few minutes to organize. We'll be delighted to hear from you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Very happy to be here to discuss budget. So I obviously am very familiar with the budget. So if I'm getting, too detailed or not detailed enough, or, please stop me and ask questions. It's a lot of information, obviously. It's a lot of numbers to go through. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Colby, do you have the presentation? Yeah. So I just wanted to start off with just laying out sort of our budget calendar, which is what we, I think we shared it first maybe back in December. And so we had our budget scoping session back on December 7th. And then we got obviously some of the direction from the board on their priorities for that. Then we sent out our budget forms to our department heads in January. And so they submitted those back to us at the beginning of February. And at that time, Larry and I met with all the department heads and had meetings regarding their budgets. Then we had our department head retreat on March 22nd. And so that was, just department heads discussing sort of where the budget stood at that point, discussing what the requests were, what requests were included in the current version, and what was not in as of right now. And so then obviously we have today, we're talking about the budget. And then I think in the original budget calendar, I had proposed that May 8th be when we have our first public hearing. But I have shifted that to May 22nd. I'm not going to be here on May 8th. And obviously that will be Jonathan's first meeting. So we wanted to push it back to May 22nd for our public hearing. We're only required to have one public hearing for the budget. In the past, our former town manager, Chris, wanted, he'd like to have two. So it's really up to the board, whether you want to have one or two, or 10, we could have a lot. But we just need to adopt the budget by June 30th. So whether that's at our last meeting in June, or whether we schedule a special meeting to do that. I would obviously prefer to have it before, but that's what we legally are required to do. So then just these are sort of definitions that we've shared every year, FY is fiscal year, GF general fund, EF enterprise fund, capital reserve fund, available fund balance, just so if I'm using any short terms, you know what I'm talking about. The goals that I have are ones that we've sort of shared in previous budget processes. We want to continue, with our service levels. We want to provide good opportunities for the people that work at the town. We want to repair, replace our capital assets that need to be done, and we want to maintain a responsible fund balance. And then I just wanted to lay out sort of, again, just the separation of our revenue sources. What is a general fund revenue source and what is an enterprise fund revenue source. So we, property tax, motor vehicle tax, sales and use tax, Any other tax-based thing is a general fund revenue. And then we have other fees from the services under the general fund. And then on the enterprise fund, we obviously have water sewer rates. We have the SEF fees, which are restricted use. And then we have just other fees, whether it's for meters or, any other fees associated with water and sewer service. So this year, we are estimating that our 1 penny is equal to $96,343. That is making the assumption that we are collecting 98.5% of our property tax revenues. And that is we typically are collecting that rate, if not higher. I mean, we have a very good return on our property tax revenues in collection. So just so that any projects that we have programmed in the current fiscal year that are not completed in the current fiscal year, those are not included in this budget document that I've given to you. That is something that we would carry over with a budget amendment in July or August, whenever we've finished doing our reconciliation for the end of the fiscal year. Just so you know, obviously costs continue to go up because of inflationary inflation, and we have our sales tax revenue continues to be above what I've projected, even for the current fiscal year. Obviously it's getting more costly to recruit and hire staff. And our retirement expense continues to go up it's like a scheduled amount every year. So and that's something that we are required to do. And that's different from the 5% that we do for the 401k. So this is for the retirement for the state. Right now, our medical insurance is just increasing 2.5%. We are exploring offering a couple different options for our health insurance. We have not gotten the final pricing on those from the league yet for MedCost. So we're waiting on that. So between now and May 22nd, there may be some slight adjustments to the budget based on that information. That you'll hear from Daryl later. The fire department is requesting an increase. And so the total amount right now that they're requesting is $1,423,888. And at the end of my presentation, I do actually have a slide that says, just FYI, our contract with the fire department is expiring at the end of this fiscal year. So that is also something that we need to be renewing. The cost of living right now for the board and staff that I have in the budget is 5%. And our GFL contract is increasing 5.2%.
It's growth.
Yeah.
Heather, the retirement expense, can you touch back on that briefly? Increasing to 12.9% for general staff and 14% for police versus what was context historically?
It was 12. So sorry, I got to think it was 12, maybe just 12.1% this current fiscal year. And I think the police was 13.4 maybe, or 0.04. I have it confirmed, but
so it's not,
right, but these are larger increase. So when I first started working here, we did not have these sort of set increases. And part of the reason is that they've now adopted that is because we were running into the problem of the funds not being sufficient enough to cover all of the retirees in North Carolina that were allowed to, fall under this plan. So now they've been working on, getting those balances back up. And that's partly why we're having these and it's good because we know already like what the plan is for essentially the next 5 years in terms of increases.
oh, good.
But it is still just a steady increase.
Okay.
So,
That was my
yeah.
next question, was going to ask, what's the demographic outlook? Is it going to be increasing in severity?
To be honest, I'm not sure.
They didn't pass that along.
Yeah, and I haven't reviewed the reports in depth that they've released, but I do know that essentially they're going to be increasing probably in the 50 to 75 basis points, every year. So,
They've given you a forecast.
yeah.
Thank
But
you.
it is something that, has steadily increased, because I think when I started, it was below, 10% for general staff. And so that is, that obviously when we have, salaries overall for the whole, town that are, in the millions of dollars, that's a sizable amount that that the town is responsible for contributing to the retirement.
Well, it's really important.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just an overview of property tax rates. So we have, obviously in the current fiscal year, we did sort of round it up slightly to 24 cents. But prior to that, we had not had an increase outside of obviously the increases when we've done the revaluations, because those essentially were increases. We have not done an increase since fiscal year 14-15. So that's just something to note. And then I also did a graph showing the value of a penny increasing over the last 10 years. So that is obviously just due to the value of the properties within the town limits of Pittsburgh. Under the general fund, I did a little bit different from last year. So last year we gave you like 8 pages of spreadsheets that showed, in and out. And it even showed, like each position and all that. That was a lot of information. I did not do it the same way this year, just because I felt like that was a little bit maybe too much to process in a sort of setting. So you have this capital project list that has general fund and enterprise fund on it. That only shows like equipment or maintenance things that need to be done. It does not show employee requests, so requests for new positions. So under general fund, we do have some requests for some new positions. One is for additional construction inspector. Another is for a project engineer, so expanding our engineering department. Another is for an additional park grounds personnel, and then some part-time personnel that would fall under sort of our temporary salaries. And then the police have requested a detective corporal to start in January. So that would be a mid-year start, so it's half the salary for this upcoming fiscal year. We have requests for vehicles for emergency management, engineering, police, and public works. We have, and then these other projects are ones that sort of are one-off projects or equipment. So file scanning, that's for our planning department, zero turn mower, flock safety cameras, some additional street patching funds, funds for the tennis courts, Rockridge Park, the basketball courts, and then some funds to be allocated for just additional playground equipment and updating on some of the playgrounds. So what I've shown on this slide is only the items that are in the budget. So the document that I gave you, that the capital project list, this is showing you requests that did not get included. It's showing both. It's showing what is in the budget and also what was requested but is not being included in the budget. So right now we have presented you with a balanced budget. So if there are things on the list that you think are important and that are not included, then we would either need to be cutting something else or increasing our revenue in some way to offset that. And we'll go through, we'll have time obviously for questions, about specific departments or items. After. So, and then on the enterprise fund, well, I guess, I don't know if we were just talking about general fund this morning. We can wait. We'll wait to talk about enterprise fund after lunch. So that's sort of just a, sort of quick sort of highlights on everything. And then I don't know if we want to go into some of the presentations by department heads.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll to move into that if the board doesn't have any questions
Right.
on what we've seen so far.
Heather, what were the Hillsborough Street improvements conceived as?
So that is for the sidewalks. So that is something that we obviously know that it's an issue. And we know that we want to be thinking about it. We are actually waiting for some more information from DOT on that. So that's why it's not in there at all. So one option that we could do with that is we could start a project fund, a capital project fund for that. And we could start setting aside some money. I hesitate to do that when we have really no idea. That 2.5 million is a guesstimate. We don't know what that cost is. And we don't know if DOT is going to assist at all, just because it is a DOT road and if there's any funds that they can assist us with. So we are waiting for some more information,
Got it.
but that's for the sidewalks on Hillsborough Street.
And it's the section closest to the circle, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it might be, I think we were estimating that would be up to I don't know if it's West Salisbury or Hanks. I
Yeah.
think Hanks.
Thanks.
Yeah,
So not all the way up to
right. No.
Powell Place.
Yeah, no. This is
Right.
just to get the downtown sidewalks in obviously better shape.
However, there is a different DOT project that widens Hillsborough Street from, I think it's Lannis out
Yeah.
to Powell Place.
Yeah. And at one time, there was some conversation about taking advantage of the opportunity when that happens to maybe do some new pavement marking in the section that we've just spoken of, the 2 blocks north of the circle. But that was a Chris Kennedy project. I think he really wanted to seize the opportunity to maybe reconfigure parking. It was,
Right, yeah, that was something that we talked with Chris about. So that was, you are recalling correctly. We did have some preliminary discussions with DOT about that. Mostly DOT, they just pointed out some challenges with doing that,
okay,
mostly related to the loss and number of spaces.
yeah,
But also later on, when you hear from Teresa, she'll be talking about a parking study that I think the Downtown Advisory Board has an interest in pursuing. So
Yeah.
that may tie in.
so I'm sorry to belabor this, but just to be clear, the Hillsborough Street improvements from Lannis to Powell Place is not going to include a continuation of new pavement down to the circle. It will. Okay,
Yep.
Surfacing, but
Reason.
DOT has possibly looked at expanding the scope of the STIP project. And that's what we're waiting to hear back from,
oh, got it, okay,
So,
on what they will cover.
right, so the base project will be to repave the area to the circle.
and keep the
And
parking.
right, and the 2.5 would be for if there's opportunity to do enhancements.
On the sidewalks.
There's an opportunity to reconfigure parking. That's the reason why we want to do a parking study before the let date in 2025.
Thank you. So glad you're on top of it, Teresa.
Oh, yeah, we've had several conversations about that.
Great.
Is the street sweeper an effort for the Public Works Department to begin to take over some of those things that have previously been contracted, because there was a contract for us
We
to,
currently hire that out,
Mhm.
and at this time, it makes more sense to hire it out than to purchase a street sweeper. Because if you'll see, a street sweeper costs $250,000.
Yeah.
We currently are only paying $15,000 a year for street sweeping. So it's just not economical, but that's just something that, so Adam was the one that submitted these requests. And so that is something that, and I believe he's also put that on there. I think it potentially was on there last year as well. It's something that he just, as the town grows, those are going to be things that we need to contemplate, that Public Works is taking over. Same with the, pavement hot box and pavement roller. So we currently contract out, our big pavement jobs. And still that makes sense in terms of just the number of personnel that we have and the cost of that equipment.
What is a grapple truck?
A grapple truck, it has the long arm that picks up like tree limbs and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we'll turn to our public safety items. I'll ask Chief Griffin to start us off.
Good morning. As I mentioned, the contract, I had spoken with Larry, the last pimp, several conversations about our contract, and through email and through talking on the telephone. We reviewed a few things, and at that time, before we left, he had told us that he was going to bring the contract back to the town to go ahead and renew it with little changes. So with that, that's all I know. We had discussed that already. Concerns that not really concerns, but questions, we had answered that. So, and I don't know if he ever talked to Paul anymore or not, but anyway, but we'll get together with y'all.
Yeah, we can get that onto one of our upcoming meetings and get that sorted out.
Before we get to the other part, the ladder truck is in Rocky Mount right now. We should have it back in Pittsburgh, hopefully 2-3 weeks. They're finishing up the last few touches and that kind of thing. Nice truck, and be glad to get it here. So with our budget this year on the, I'm gonna get highlights on the where our most of the increase is at. The capital outlay, as you see, is 56% increase with that. And all of that is to one item, is 14 sets of turnout gear, our firefighting gear, hats, helmets, and things. We're having to replace them. We're trying to get all the guys for 2 sets. With after a brush fire, they're down till we can get it washed and clean. Turnaround time, we've had some gear order right now for almost a year. Things have gone up tremendously. So trying to get things, we're having big problems with getting. But that was at 14 sets of gear at $3,500, around $50,000. So that's our biggest capital outlay that we have this year. And in paid personnel, we were asking up 34%, and that's to hire 6 new firefighters. We knew that the growth was really going to get us, but after the apartments of training, and there it has hit us 10 times harder than we thought as far as personnel and manpower. Just with the Mosaic apartments, we've had to spend about $25,000 extra that we was not planning on. Pittsburgh, we're used to residential and a few commercial buildings, and now we have these 4- and 5-story buildings. So we are having to regroup on a lot of different items that we have to have. $25,000. It's just simple fire hose, nozzles, and equipment, just for that building. And we have to do the same thing for all 4 engines that we have. So that's where we're seeing, where we're needing our manpower and our increase for the budget this year. We've had a lot of calls from Jose of our ISO rating, which we are 3 in town. So, you know, and along with the manpower, as our town grows and our buildings grow, get taller, you know, to keep our rating and hopefully one day, you know, to make it better. We have to have some people. We'd like to have 10 or 12 people this year, but we definitely need 6 tremendously to get on this ladder, or we can man the ladder in our engines. Whatever we need to. So that's our biggest increase with y'all this year. Lucky with the county this year, we actually did have $101,000 fund balance, so that helped out with our budget a lot just coming up.
Thank you, Chief Darrell. Heather, do we have a sense? I hate to put you on the spot because this probably is not something intuitive, but how revenues have increased from the Mosaic development, sales tax, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't pulled a report specifically, obviously, on that area. So it's not easy to see. And some of that is still delayed in terms of, you know, we'll see it in the next, you know, so I mean, it's some of that development that's happening. Right now, we don't see that we won't see that in the current tax year. So, you know, in the budget, you know, I am estimating that our taxes, I'm doing that based on the projections that the county has given us for the taxes. So, I mean, I'm projecting that our property tax revenue is increasing 12.6%. And obviously that's without a tax increase. So that's just, you know, growth. And obviously most of it is in that area. So.
Oh, it is.
Well, I'm assuming, I mean, there's not, I mean, again, there's not.
Most of the additional growth.
Development.
Got it.
So, you know, I mean, it is, you know, mostly that. And obviously there is, because it's obviously not a revaluation year, so people's property values are staying the same. So, you know, it's just the growth.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty good guess.
So-
Well done on your toes.
But, so, you know, there's definitely, you know, growth there and, you know, as if we are annexing any more properties, even during the tax year, there would be, you know, slight differences in terms of what we actually collect versus what we're projecting. So, but, you know, that is, you know, it still is, I think, lagging a little bit in terms of obviously the demand on the town in terms of expenses.
Yeah.
So.
Case in point, these fire expenses.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I think it's a concept of development overall. It's like we had to order that ladder truck
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
And we've got to hire firefighters now, but
Yeah.
we're not getting any of the increased revenue from those apartments or those houses, you know, whatever those are, you know. So we've got to pay for the growth before it's here
Yes,
somehow.
yeah, yeah, and we should, I mean, and, you know, the idea is obviously that we will also see hopefully an increase in our sales tax because of more people being within the, you know, town limits and buying things hopefully here. So, you know, I don't know that impact, that's not something that is identifiable really. So, you know, not only will we see an increase in the property tax revenue, but we should be seeing, you know, and we are, I mean, our sales tax revenue is steadily growing. And like I said, it exceeds our expectations every year. And I do budget conservatively with that because I don't want to
It's hard to plan,
overestimate. So, so anyway, so I mean, we, you know, hopefully we will be getting that too, but yes, it's just delayed. So.
And you've worked in that 26% into the overall budget. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. So what they are requesting is in the budget.
You've passed it in. Good.
Yes, yeah.
And can you remind me like how the funding works between the county or, you know, like they're like, you can make a request to us, you make a request to the county and like,
Yeah.
how is that?
I mean, I believe,
Or-
Chief, you make the same,
Yeah,
you request the same pennies, right?
right.
From the county, and so their penny is worth a different amount than our penny.
Yeah. Their penny is worth this year was 142,634.
Yeah.
Which brings their to 2,134,000.
Yeah, so they do fund, the county funds a larger portion. Because so they request the same number of pennies from both of us. And because of the, obviously the value difference in the penny, the county is funding a higher percentage of the overall fire budget.
See, like the 101,000, we wasn't really expecting that, because some years we get 10,000, and one year, some year may not get nothing, so. It's sort of not a bonus, but
Yeah,
good to have.
but I guess, I mean, there's a chance that either of us could say, well, we can only fund X, right? Is that-
Right, well, so our contract with the fire department does say that we will pay the same rate, at least the same rate that the county pays
Okay.
in terms of pennies.
Okay.
So, and obviously we can pay more, but that's what, I think that's. how
That's
it's
what it
written.
is, right now it is.
Yeah,
And that's definitely something we had talked about as the town grows, your value is going to get way over the county eventually. So
Right.
that'll be something we have to adjust, which would benefit y'all more, the rate wouldn't be the same.
Oh,
We're
okay.
maxed out,
Sure.
well, we're not maxed out, with the fire district, 15 cents, that's it, that's all we can go. But before long, y'all, the town will have, the tax base will be a whole lot higher than that.
When you say maxed out, does that mean that it needs to change in contract or statutorily or?
Statutory, it's a max of 15 cents.
Okay.
So with us getting this, hiring the new folks, we'll be at 14.25.
Right.
So when we get to 15, we are maxed out, and that's just the whole state that's in a fire district.
So, Chief, can you talk about, you mentioned your ISO rating. Can you talk about that a little bit as far as your plan for your future stations and then how that relates to your ISO?
Yeah, so with the ladder truck, our fire district has needed, the way the state grades us, with buildings over 35 foot tall, you get deductions. Now that we have a ladder truck, which that will improve our rating to a point, but because we're so far away at Station 2, we're gonna be about 2.5 to 3 miles, so we will not get full credit for that ladder truck in the town. And we've had some conversation with Chatham Parks in the last couple of months about a station on the northern end around Eubanks Road. So when we get that station, whenever that station gets built, then we'll get a full credit. And I can see us dropping to a 2 easily, in 5 or 6 years. If we get more people. We've actually had a lot of people, I guess, tenants that's moving into Mosaic, calling, asking us, what our rate is, insurance companies calling, that kind of thing.
What would the difference between a 3 and a 2 be as far as insurance?
It'll help as far as the insurance company, it'll help the commercial. Now, as far as residential, you'll not see that. But you'll see the most of the commercial depending on what the buildings were. A 1 is the best you can get. So the little old town with 3, we're very proud of that. When you get to a 1, you gotta work hard every year to keep that 1. So you don't want to fall back.
So for the new fire station, like what's your hopeful timeline for that and funding ideas?
Well, that's gonna be our meeting that we had with Chatham Park, which has always been for confusion. They have a area that we've looked at that we like, and we've made suggestions, but we haven't heard anything back from them. That would definitely be, it won't be a metal building up there in Chatham Park. It'll be a nice building. And you're looking, we're just looking at departments around us, that building fire stations, you're looking $5 to $8 million right now, which is hard today. And then what goes along with that is you're looking about 24 more staff we're gonna have to hire to run that station.
And so the conversation so far has been about them donating the land, and that's it, nothing more.
Nothing more.
And they have shown you a site that you like.
But right now it's full of trees.
Right.
So, but the area, and where the future road's going to be, it will be a good area to reach the north and east side pretty quick.
And you gave comments on that
Yes, sir.
and haven't heard back. So what you
Yes.
said, okay.
Mr. Farrell was with us in that meeting, and so. But we hadn't heard anything else back. The spot that we were looking at, we have three sites. So we're hoping maybe the first site that we can maybe get a few more acres, maybe a maximum 5 acres, and build a bigger station. Because it'll house the ladder truck and an engine. And the other station that we build out later, probably just will need to be a smaller station. Won't need as much land. There'll only be an engine there. So we can, work with them and get this first station bigger. Then we can, move on.
Chief Darrell, this probably isn't a question for you, and I don't want you to feel burdened by the fact that I'm articulating this question, but I think it needs to be aired. Chatham Park investors agreed to a 5-acre site for the town for, I believe it was a combination of police, fire, and maybe even EMT in the North Village. That's my recollection. Can anyone else
That is correct.
amplify that?
Yeah.
Okay,
With that stipulation there with, and from what we understand, and now this is not, set in stone, but the EMS, from what I understand, they'll stay where they're at. They're getting ready to build a new one to Jack Bennett, right
okay,
there in that area right there.
all right. So they're happy with what they've got and they don't
Yes.
need.
Now up to, if PD wants to come out there for something, that's entirely will be up to them.
Okay.
How they work that.
And at a first glance, do you think that configuration of uses could work?
You buy for us?
Yes, sir,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
on a 5-acre site.
Yes.
And it would, of course, increase the cost of the building.
Yeah, because our plans, to be able to be like a training center, which we need a training tower. Now we're having to go to Sanford to do all our tower training, our burn building, that kind of thing. So we want to be able, hopefully have it in one spot where we can do the majority of our training.
Not have to drive a half hour.
Yes.
Makes sense.
And one of the spots which Chatham Parks, if we get this spot, for the area where we want it, like here, the road they have is, say, this height. Where they've also said that when they dig this down, they could go ahead and have a spot for us, clear it, grade it, which would save us money because they need somewhere to put the dirt. We'll need somewhere, dirt to go there. So it might,
Okay.
if it works together, it'd be great.
So some amount of site improvements have been discussed.
Yes.
And of course, they'll put utilities to the site. Thank you.
Chief, as I understand it, there are some unregulated chemicals or about to be regulated chemicals, which are within your uniforms. Not only are you dealing with firefighting foam, which contains some carcinogenics, but my understanding is that your uniform, your gear can also have some of those chemicals in it. I certainly want to make sure that we're equipping you with what you need for your safety as well as the public safety. Can you speak to that issue? And is the gear you're ordering chemically free?
It's not completely chemical free, but it's at a very, very low rate. But to have the protection that we need, sometimes you have to have a little bit of bad stuff. But the gear that we have is, you know, it's to us, Chuck Devine made this years ago. He's always been, you know, we're gonna get the best that we can get to protect our guys.
Yeah.
And that's what we have. I mean, we get the best that we can get.
Can I speak on that?
Yes, sir.
So I actually was, looking at the ladder truck, was in a meeting with the a turnout gear salesman yesterday. We were actually, this come up in conversation at lunch. The reality of it, all turnout gear, no matter the manufacturer, they all get their product material from the same people. So all turnout gear has what you're referring to in it. And my understanding with him is it's still in some legislation and stuff of how they're going to long-term combat this, because it's not just turnout gear that has this product. There's a lot of products that we're probably sitting on right now that has that same thing. And so it's a long-term thing. But as far as our gear, we really don't have a choice in the matter at this point in time. But it is something that the manufacturers are looking at to try to do something about. So.
And the foam that you were speaking about, all of the protein foam that we had that was real bad, it is off the shelf. We don't have it on the truck.
Good.
But there could be times where, depending on the incidents, you may have to use some of it. Some of it's still being used this day. You gotta figure out what's life over a little environmental type, just
Sure.
on situation.
Sure.
But we don't carry any of that on the truck anymore.
Thank you.
Chief, would you talk about, and you and I talked about this recently, and later today, we're gonna talk with the board about the merger, the Sanford merger. You and I spoke briefly about a fire department kind of question related to that. Can you talk about what that was?
Yes, and so part of our ISO, I'll let Si speak on this because he's in Lee County. All the hydrants, we have to test all the hydrants. And we're supposed, within a 5-year period, we are supposed to touch every one of them. Well, we touch every one of them now, because it's good training for us, good training for our new guys. And we find a lot of problems with the hydrant testing with lines and what may flow, what may not flow. So with the merger that y'all talking about, and then what I had asked Kent was, will Sanford let us test the hydrants, or are they not gonna let us test the hydrants? But we have to have a record. And then, so Si is on Northview Fire Department in Lee County, so I'll let him.
Yeah, I'm originally from Sanford, I live in Asbury now, but I volunteer at Northview Fire Department, which is just an edge of Lee County there. And my understanding, and this is how it's been for forever, is Sanford does not let us touch a fire hydrant unless we need it for a fire. So far as regular maintenance and stuff like that, they've always said that that's what they do. Their department handles that. In saying that, I don't know, the records of actual flows and that kind of data has not always been readily available to the fire departments when it's needed. So again, it would be a good question to ask the city of Sanford, is that something that, they're going to allow us to do? And the reason is, the reason I've always heard is they don't want to break the fire hydrants, but I'd rather break one in testing than break it on fire when I need it. Yeah. So.
And the water is one of the main 50% of our grade for ISO. So, and it's just things we need to know that these hydrants are going to work. So that's the reason we like to do them ourselves. So to switch over, just
Right.
They just need to understand that we have to have the records, and I think that'd be something that y'all can dictate. That, hey, we got to have this.
Yeah. So
Right, yeah, we appreciate you sharing that, and staff has, collected that concern, and we'll be discussing it, but I didn't want the board to hear that directly from the chief, so.
So 'cause it sounds like you don't have a preference necessarily to test it yourself, as long as you get records that they're testing it to a standard.
So Pittsburgh's got so many new hydrants right now, it's gonna take us 3 or 4 months to test all these hydrants, but it's good. We like to put our hands on, we find hydrants sometime that we didn't know were there. But we do like to do it, but, you know, if somebody else is gonna do it, that's great too, but we just, you know, we need the information.
There is a benefit for us flowing our island. The guys get out there and they know, all right, this hydrant here is a, 1,300 gallon hydrant, where this hydrant over here is a 600 gallon hydrant. That affects our operations one way or the other. So I mean, there is benefit to us physically doing them, but there's also benefit to letting somebody else do it as well. It's like you say, as long as we can obtain the data, and it's just a different training avenue for us.
Right. And I think have the ability to do training with them if you need to.
Right,
There's not
right.
a fire, but okay.
It's good to know when you come up on a hydrant that water's gonna be provided.
That's the point.
Yeah.
There have been times where we've done it, we've had no water, right, but, you
I
know,
believe that right out here one day. I'll get it.
But anyway. We'll make it work.
So that has been added to the list to negotiate or discuss with Sanford.
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Chief, so I thank you for coming and for your remarks. We appreciate it.
When we get the ladder truck in, I'll call in and bring it somewhere where y'all can see it and look at it. And if you want to ride up 100 foot, that's up to y'all.
Sounds great. Yeah.
I'm not going up that high.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Mayor, if we're good to keep going, we'll now turn to our Chief Shorty for his comments about police budget.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hopefully I won't have as much business to talk with y'all as Darrell did, because I know there's a lot of things going on in town. And luckily for us, Pittsburgh's still Pittsburgh. A lot more people, a lot more cars in town, but crime wise, I think we're doing good. It's still the Pittsburgh that I grew up in. So we averaged, or last year, we had a little over 10,000 calls for service, just to give y'all a picture of what we did last year. That ranges anywhere from accidents to well-being checks to unfortunately car break-ins and, just anything that we deal with. Not that, like I say, 10,000 may sound like a whole lot to here in Pittsburgh, but there's a lot of different things in there, a lot of small things that we take care of that luckily doesn't deal, doesn't affect the whole general fund. So that's still good. Report wise, unfortunately, we have our incident reports. Like I said, this was calls for service. So our reports that we take, or actually the guys actually come in and write a report on, it has increased over the past few years. Last year, for the whole year, we had 399 reports that we actually wrote and had to do some kind of investigation on. So far, up till April the 1st, excuse me, we've had 146 reports. So we're on pace to definitely go over where we were last year. And that gets me into where we're asking for a new detective. As far as our patrol guys, the guys that you see riding around in uniforms, we're still able to cover the calls we have right now. And in the next few years, we're probably gonna come to you, we're gonna have to start asking for patrol officers to be able to answer these calls and to raise the number that we actually have on patrol. Right now, when we have on the shift, we have 2 officers during the day and 2 officers at night. The ones during the day, they're supplemented by myself and some of the other admin staff that's in. like I said, West, looking down the road, we're probably gonna ask for another 2 to 4 officers to supplement that and at least bring those teams up to where we'll have 3 officers per shift. That gives us more flexibility when the guys want time off that, because it does, it causes a burden on us when we have guys that want off either on weekends or at night to find coverage for them. Because if there's only 4 people on A shift and 4 on B shift, so if one's off on A shift and somebody on B shift is going to have some overtime, we're going to have a lot of overtime. And unfortunately, we've seen numbers this year where, some of the guys we've been through our overtime this year just for making up for that. We do have, luckily, we do have 1 officer that we're planning on swearing in Monday night. So that'll bring us up. We'll only have 2 vacancies. So hopefully we can, we've got another interview coming up because that's been tough trying to actually find people that want to still do police work. And, and unfortunately, we compete with Wake County and Orange County as far as trying to find officers. And it's, when you can come straight out of rookie school and go to work for Apex making $55,000 or $60,000, I mean, that's a tough sell on us trying to get officers to come here. We try to outweigh that we're a heck of a lot better than those are over there. But sometimes unfortunately, just money talks more than anything. So that, like I said, that's been a struggle for us and, everybody across the county.
Excuse me, Chief, would you mind refreshing our memories about what our starting pay is for officers?
Right now, it's a little over 49,000. I think it's 49,137, but only to the 137.
Thank you.
So, but I think that's a long way because I started at $19,000, but that's been a few moons ago. So.
And that's compared to starting pay with other regional
Yes.
competitors.
I think it's either Apex or Cary. They are anywhere from $55,000 to $60,000, which I mean, that's Apex and Cary, and one day, we'll be to that point. So, for good or bad.
Yeah.
So that, like I say, we're hopefully we're going to get those 2 positions in or get them filled. And then we'll be back to full staff. But like I say, on the patrol end, we're good right now. My concern is with, we only have 1 detective, and she does a fantastic job. But unfortunately, she handles 99% of our felony cases. She handles a large number of misdemeanor cases that sometimes the patrol guys, they can't do because either A, they have to go out of town to do investigation, or it does take a lot of their patrol time away. So it focuses back on her. And she's she takes care of our evidence room right now. So she wears a lot of hats. So we were looking to try to help her out and try to take some of the load off of her and to hire a new detective. And that's what we were just looking, just trying to save some money. Because like I said, I know things are tight all across this budget to start the person in January instead of in July. Our misdemeanor cases, like I say, we're up to almost 50 misdemeanor cases that we're investigating right now. And felony cases, we're up to 33. And last year we had 107. So that, like I say, we're a third of the way through, and we're probably going to top that. So like I said, that is what this new detective can help her investigate and like I said, take some of the load off. Another thing we're asking for is we're asking for 3 new patrol vehicles. We're looking at the Explorers like we have, the hybrids. they've done great. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring my numbers as far as, gas mileage, but gas mileage wise, they are a ton better than those Dodge Chargers were that we had. And the Ford Explorers that we had are just the gas mileage. So they, like I said, they have been better for us, but we're looking to buy 3 for patrol, and that will completely get us rid of those Dodge Chargers. The Dodge Chargers started having a problem with major engine failures or cams and lifters in those. So we're trying to cycle those out to try to get, like I say, more fuel efficient vehicles in, and to not have to pay $7,000 or $8,000 for a 10-year-old car that we're trying to keep it on the road. We would also need another SUV for the detective that would come on. So we were asking for that. And we're also and I don't know if y'all seen in the news about flock safety cameras. A lot of agencies or a lot of cities around us have started putting these flock safety cameras in. And basically what they are is, it's a license plate reader. Wherever we've talked about putting them in neighborhoods, because we've had, in some of our neighborhoods, we've had several larcenies or break-ins of cars, stolen cars. And this is just another safety feature that we can put in. The flock safety cameras will be set up on poles. They've got a solar panel that keeps them running 24 hours a day. And we're able to, if a car goes by and has been entered stolen, or if there's a child abduction and a car's been registered, that they've taken the child, or it's a, missing person, or somebody like with dementia or that's has, some cognitive impairment, that if that vehicle has been entered in and it runs by that camera, we get an automatic reply or automatic hit that, hey, this car that has something going on with it is in this neighborhood or has gone by this camera. So we can have officers that will go and search for that car. There's been, I know Garner, there's several cities around Wake County, Greensboro. They've got these cameras set up. And like I said, they run 24 hours a day. And I know some people on the other end, they worried about the automated license plate reader that it invades privacy, and they're worried about privacy issues and things like that. But we're not going in and looking at these cameras and running every tag that goes by these vehicles. All we're worried about is somebody comes into one of our neighborhoods meaning to do bad things to our citizens, and that maybe we can get a hit off of that vehicle. Or if we do have something that's reported the next day, then at least we've got vehicle description, we've got a tag on the car that we can go back and start our investigation as far as, what bad actor has been inside the city doing things.
Chief Shorty, where do the alerts come from for a specific tag of concern?
They'll come, everything goes through Flock Safety, the company,
Okay.
and their information is coordinated, or it's tied in with NCIC, which is a national crime interstate compact, where that information will come from them, and then we'll send alerts to our officers.
So like City of Raleigh would report a child abduction associated with this license tag that would go into this national database.
Yes.
And the flock safety camera, because it's a part of that system, if it saw it, it would send you a ping.
Yes, sir, it would. And if Raleigh, and we can be connected to, Raleigh, Gary, Garner, that, you know, something that we may have here that we're looking for a white Chevy Tahoe.
You could put in
that
local
we can-
requests.
We can look for that. We can search for white Chevy Tahoe, you know, that was in the area between these hours to try to narrow things down. So like I said, that's, we're looking at that. There's HOAs, that actually buy these cameras themselves and put them up. And if the HOAs do that, then they can give us or give the police department permission to actually look at their information or look at their camera system to where we can get alerts from them. So that's, you know, if we can, you know, kind of persuade neighborhoods or HOAs to actually buy into these also, then it would protect their citizens or the residents, you know, inside those developments and would benefit us as a town.
And that 17,300 is all in, including maintenance or data fees or?
Yes,
Service
so
from
that's the first year, for, actually, we wouldn't own the cameras, Flock still owns the cameras, but that's for the access to the data, for them setting it up. And then there's a yearly fee, after that, which is, I don't have it wrote down, but I think it's either 2,500 or 3,000 per camera. So, you know, after if y'all were, you know, if y'all say this is good, then like I said, we would have a recurring fee per camera after going forward. But like I said, this is just another tool as far as that we're trying to just protect our citizens.
And you can put in your own requests for a query.
Yeah,
look for
we can go in and we can search. Like I said, we have access to, if I have a specific vehicle that I'm looking for, that we can go in and it would pull up, from my understanding, it would pull up if they went by one of the cameras in Garner. I mean, it may not be the right tile I'm looking for, but it would pull that information up to where we could see it. And after 30 days, all this information that Flock has, it gets deleted. So that, you know, they do keep it stored for 30 days, but after 30 days, it's on an active rotation of being deleted. So like I said, that's one of the concerns is, you know, as far as privacy concerns or things like that. But like I said, I'm just worried about the bad people. I'm not worried about the everyday good people coming through town.
Shorty, how many cameras are you assuming to purchase?
Right now, 4. Yes, sir. And that's, hopefully, if this goes like, I hope we never have to use it.
Right.
But if it goes like we hope that, that if we do put them up, you know, in a neighborhood, then, you know, we may have, or in a development that, you know, we might can get one entrance or one exit. And maybe we can talk to the HOA that, you know, maybe they can put it at the, you know, another one at another. And then, you know, we could have conversations as far as, you know, how we would go from there with it.
Good, I like that idea.
Are they installed in a specific location or can we move them around?
If we-
Interest.
Unfortunately, if we move them around, we have to contact them. We have to pay, I think it's $300 or $350, I think is their setup fee.
Okay.
But, you know, like I say, if we do get them, we can set them up and, if we do see that, you know, maybe there's a bigger need or a bigger issue somewhere else, then, you know, we could contact them. So, I mean, you know, like I say, we'd have to pay $350,
Sure.
but,
Yeah.
you know, in the long run, that may pay off itself. But other than that, that's our, like I say, that's our big ask. Like I say, I know that the least y'all hear from me, the better off everybody is. So that, you know, like I say, I know that growth with the police department's coming. Well, like I said, we're good right now, but just like I said, I just want y'all, in the back of your mind, with y'all, y'all know that, as our, the sewer line gets done and everything else gets done, that I'm gonna definitely come back with my hat in hand, so.
One other question, how are you guys on space? I know that you're probably very limited, what do you have for the future?
Well, that's, actually, so Chris, was it in this year's budget? I know that.
That's a study.
So we had a study, and it's still sitting there because, things happen, but I'm planning on, I'll let Jonathan at least get in here and get seated good, and, like I said, we do need to start looking at that because we are, town admin and us, we're fixing to meet in the middle. So that's, but that is something we're gonna have to start looking at to decide where we can grow or where we can go. So,
I'll just add in, this afternoon, we do have some time to talk about not only the police station need, but also some of the other town, this kind of office space needs, public works and so forth. So certainly invite Shorty for you to come back for that in the afternoon if you're available, but we'll be talking a little bit more in detail about that.
But I guess like we still have the money available for that study
yes.
when it's
Yes,
more
so we,
appropriate to do it.
yeah, so so in the current budget, we have allocated 100,000
Yeah.
into a police station, project fund.
Hmm.
So that will carry over because it's in a project fund, so that spans fiscal years, so that's not gonna go away.
Yeah.
So that money is sitting there, and also we have, 50,000 in a, buildings and grounds project budget, which sorry. Yeah, 50,000 in a buildings and grounds project budget, which I think we also were setting aside for from that end. We also have 50,000 in. That 50,000 is for the building study for the shop, for our public works shop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Diane Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do have that 100,000 for the police station, and then 50,000 for the shop, and they're both in separate project funds, so that will carry over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chief, I know you probably hear a lot. We get frequent emails from people about speeders in whatever our neighborhoods are that we live in. I know Hillsborough Street has suffered greatly from trucks and things coming barreling down the road. Is there, I do believe that those flashing signs do help a little bit. Is there a need for more flashing signs that would indicate slowdowns in the various areas of our town that have chronic problems?
We could look at that. I know we've got two, and we've talked about putting one up on, I think, Thompson Street right now. But we have another one that has speed limits, the flashing. And that is a steady complaint, or concern that we get, and I know y'all hear it too. As far as, speeders and traffic, and like I say, we are working on it and trying to do the best we can with it right now. But that's something we can look at, that about ordering, a couple more signs for that, just to put them out and leave them up in places for a while.
What kind of statistics do we have about citations issued by the police department last year, for example, for speeders?
Well, no, I don't. I'd have to go back and, to break down, but we, last year, we had over 1,200 vehicle stops to where either a citation was issued, a verbal warning, or a written warning was issued. And so far this, let's see, this year, I think we're gonna be above that this year. And I thought I had. Yeah, we've had about 330 traffic stops so far this year. So I mean, that's, I guess we're a quarter of the way through, so we may be on that or with that, and it's, but that, we have issued, I get the majority of our stops are for speed.
Is that a priority for the department, or is it sort of a pain in the neck from the standpoint of the officer has to appear in court? That means you've got to have a substitute person on that officer's shift. Where do you stand on that?
It's not, I mean, I don't think it's a problem because, unfortunately, as you know, a lot of times now the officers are not even needed in court because everything's handled, handled there. But there's not many times that it's not like it used to be an officers don't appear in court as much as they used to.
Okay.
A lot of things are handled between the DA and either the defendant themselves or, their outstanding lawyers they hire.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say that not only do we hear about the speeding and all of that, but we also get emails about wonderful things. I got one that was outstanding. I sent to you about Officer Davis, who stopped. I don't mind telling you that the chairman of the Chatham County Democratic Party, and she wrote to me specifically. I mean, she didn't tell anybody who she was, but she wrote to me specifically to talk about how beautifully the interaction between her and the police had been, and how important it was that to have that kind of community engagement. And she was delighted to be stopped. I don't know if he issued it. I don't know about whether he gave her a ticket or not, but
that might have changed. That might have changed, but that's, and we do. I hear, and then, and I have people to call me that, that hear or whatever, and, and there's still that old thought of, well, ain't they got nothing better to do than stop calling. But, that's one of the issues that almost all of us deal with. We all drive, so, we're trying to keep the roads safer. And, there's a lot of times if you're coming through, because we've had several, coming through either down Hillsborough Street or, come up Sam, just coming 15 that, they shouldn't be surprised if they got stopped as far as, speed. And like I said, I know that runs all over town, but like I say, we are trying to do that, but that's, our main concern is trying to make sure that everybody's safe and, you know, if that's stopping cars and if the officers do have to show up in court, then, you know, that's another thing and so be it on their end. So, but it's not a burden, so, but hopefully we can, you know, just do a better job than what we're doing.
There's a younger male officer who has been on Thompson Street lately in the mornings. And he's been doing a great job. His demeanor is good. I just think he represents all of us really well. I can't think of his name to save my life, but he's been parked in my driveway a lot on Thompson Street in the mornings, and he's doing the Lord's work out there. So,
That's, yeah, because it's, yeah.
Edelman,
He's a good
yeah,
guy.
Edelman, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, that's, like I said, we do, and I know that, like I said, there's a lot of places that we do need to cover whatever, and unfortunately, you know, that, and then that goes back to the, you know, only having 2 patrol officers out, you know, it's hard to cover everything, but,
Headed south on Thompson in the morning, that sun is right in your eyes.
oh, yes.
And when Chatham Park comes out and just blows that stop sign, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
And they come right out. So I like seeing it, frankly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I appreciate you bringing up these issues, questions about speeding, Mayor Perry, and I'd like to echo the request for those solar powered illuminated stop signs, the ones with signal like the one on Chatham Forest Drive. I feel it's very effective. My neighbors think it's effective. And, you know, if somebody's going to break the law and wants to break the law, it's not going to stop them, obviously. But for those of us who just need to be reminded, it's a very helpful thing to bring you back and say, okay, I'm actually in a neighborhood, need to stick 25. I'm very grateful that we've got it in Chatham Forest. And I think it's only $500,000. And it sounds like if you want one on Thompson Street, I'm all for that. I think that'd be terrific. I'd love it if we could get on one on Park Drive, because those folks have been so consumed with those worries about a few bad speeders. I know the data didn't bear it out, but I think there are some exceptional issues going on over there, and it is heavily used as a cut through. So I definitely would like you to prioritize those 2 locations. I know you've got these portable signs, but you deploy those as needed. And I think there's an ongoing need on, as you say, Thompson and on Park. And if my neighbors are going to be angry with me for saying it, but if you need to pull out the one on Thompson, or excuse me, Chatham Forest Drive to move it over to Park or to Thompson Street, I'm in favor of that. I just think we need to use more of those devices. So, thank you.
Any more questions for the chief? Thank you very much. Katie Keller, are we ready to?
Sure,
Katie?
but whatever the board's pleasure. If you want to take 5-minute break, we can, or we can just move right ahead to Parks and Rec.
I'd appreciate a quick
Take
bathroom
5.
break.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will, as we're doing that, I was able to get from staff for that, the pilot budget survey we did, we got 5 responses. And the themes for the most part were increased sidewalks and pedestrian facilities and continuing to work on the drinking water. So those were kind of the flavor of the comments we got back.
All right, welcome, Katie.
Hello.
Okay, so what to kind of do, just a little recap, refresher of where we're at from, this last year, and going into this next year. So some project updates. We got the 52-acre park in December from Chatham Park. And we are well on our way with the community house updated designs. And those will be presented hopefully at this next meeting next week at the Parks and Rec Advisory Board as a first draft with some feedback. And then Lewis Freeman Park, this was the we are well on our way in filling out the application. We are working with the Chatham County Historical Association as well for a letter of support for the grant for this that will go with the rural transformation grant application. And this was the new updated design. We had some modifications that we had discussed previously. And this is the one that the Parks and Rec Advisory Board voted on, and that will be submitted. And the application just opened last week, and so the deadline for that is May 1st. So you're hoping to get that a little bit before, obviously a little bit before. In the next couple of weeks, we'll have be wrapping up this grant. So this year we had the Parks and Recreation superintendent or park maintenance superintendent. And we've had some equipment replacements that we were able to get through the Chatham County grant every year. We also won a local social media contest where one of the local playground representatives here in town actually we applied for it and won, and they are donating a new smaller piece play panel to go along with fire truck at Kiwanis Park, which is really nice. And the zip line is up in place, and so are the swings.
Very
super excited about that. I had some helpers earlier this week to make sure to test it out. And they, while very hard to please, they were very supportive of this. So both the positions have been filled, and we are having new partners. The rec coordinator and the park maintenance superintendent positions have been filled, and they have hit the ground running with the maintenance. And then Mara on the recreation coordinator side. Recently, we partnered with the stormwater and engineering with Morgan DeWitt, and they were spreading some stormwater educational items at Night Farm Park recently. And we actually, one of our really big supporters of the group Pittsburgh Mommies actually sent in a message with this picture and was like, hey, we just wanted to thank you guys so much for starting to offer these opportunities, and we are so excited for many more to occur in the future. And also updating, I'll be sending out an email as a reminder too, on April 22nd. We are having a first program, Earth Fest, and we are partnering with the local Girl Scouts group, where we will have about 4 or 5 different stations around Town Lake, and a trail scavenger hunt, and many different, little small craft kits and things like that to celebrate Earth Fest and Arbor Day. So we're excited to kind of offer more of these opportunities and develop more partnerships in the future. Okay, so next year, As a reminder, Night Farm Community Park takeover, we are taking that over as of May 29th, 100%. And so these are the amenities, and additionally, 1.5 miles of greenway.
2024.
May 29th.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
That's what I thought.
Yes,
When you said
next
next
month.
year.
Yes. Sorry, yes, and next year, yeah. So also coming down the line, I want to get this on your radar. In addition to the 52-acre park that we got in December, there are also these, I know it's hard, these two green ones. They're hard to see. One is approximately 40 acres in section 6.3 and a 24-acre in the lots. These are all kind of slated for the each $3 million improvement sites. Chatham Park has recently approached us with kind of a first design and data design. One thing that this has been very recently, so one thing that is a priority for myself is to ensure that we are having public input on what our priorities are. Right now, some of the designs are very athletic heavy, athletic field heavy, and there are some concerns on our end for maintenance and staffing significantly. Those are whenever you have high active athletic parks, that requires a ton of not just maintenance staffing, but also other coordinator staffing as well. It's a lot to take on and schedule. So that is coming. They're wanting to schedule this out and do those improvements with very soon to start that. So want to kind of give a heads up on that coming down the line. There are also some in these red, in the red circles are mini pocket parks that they're slated to be public. Two of which are going to be improvement sites that they would like to do. Two of those 7. So will be that on your radar as well. For major capital projects, as Heather and Kent mentioned, so we're going for, especially knowing things that are coming down the line, I think it's an imperative. We need, and for existing, we need an additional parks and grounds position. And part-time seasonal staff, the seasonal staff would do the majority of, if we have any programs or small type of events, but the majority of the work would be, especially on nights and weekends when we aren't having staff there or having shelter rentals. If you've ever been to Night Farm Park, especially on the weekends, the trash, we will need part-time staff to help with trash and help with shelter rentals, making sure locking people in and locking people out, making sure that the reservations are squared away. And also additionally, when the community house reopens, to have that there. The other thing would be the Clinahan tennis courts, some additional funds for that project. Rock Ridge Playground, that is coming up, and it is starting to be a safety concern. Its time has been met that we need to address that and replace that equipment. And the Clinahan basketball courts need to be reconstructed. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Katie?
I have one. I do. I'll go ahead. You go first. Matt, a couple. Living back on that street, on Lama Street, I go by the Kiwanis Club quite a bit. And I know Kyle's son plays out there, do my grandchildren. Unfortunately, the other day I was walking through there and somebody had wrote at the swing set where the blocks are very bad shape, unsafe,
Okay.
in child's chalk. So it is very, they're split apart where it could possibly be some ankle injuries.
We are actually replacing that later this month.
Wonderful.
We're waiting on the equipment. We have that order in. That was also the remaining part of the grant, because I agree. I've physically walked across there and never do it without sprain an ankle or something, like it is, I agree 100%. And it will be the pour in place, that is like the fire truck.
Right, wonderful, that'd be great. The other thing, that I was going back through my laptop here. I've been back in January 21 and 2012. We discussed the skate park. That's 11 years that we have been discussing it. I know it's a big expense. I think it's something we need to start financing either start putting some monies away. But that's a long time. And the gentleman, I spoke to one of the fellows Tuesday and, they have $120,000 right now that they're willing to help out with the town and move forward. So anything we can do to move that, I'd be much in support of that.
And I will clarify, only because I went very deep in the meeting minutes on both sides, like extremely so. I at least from what's on public record, from what I understand, the reason why we haven't been doing it up to this point has been that the nonprofit had originally proposed that they were raising the funds 100%, and that our role in this was that we were securing the land, ensuring that that land was not. So I think that up until this point is the reason why we haven't been setting money aside for it. But if that is the direction of the board, obviously we will take a look and see what we can do to start preparing that for the future. I think that I just want to make sure that was.
You are
clear.
correct about that because Toby had told me the exact same.
Right.
I think a good thing we might do towards that is say, engage with them again and say, what's your plan for fundraising for this? And then kind of get a timeline. And then we can plan on our side of let's work to get a bathroom in there.
Right.
That meets that timeline and when they'll raise funds.
Right.
And then we can meet that requirement from the county or, review the location and all those things too. Like I understand there's a lot of investment proposed in that park for the existing stuff. And I think that's important because I think we've got a lot of parks going online. We got to maintain what we have before we expand. But I think, it's going to take some time for them to raise the money for that too. I think it's a good thing. So let's work on a timeline and say, we'll allocate money for a bathroom by this time. You guys work on raising money by this time. And, we'll check in and make these things meet up.
And so is that kind of, would you add to that?
Yeah. Didn't we have $500,000 allocated last year to the renovation of the community house?
Yes.
That seems like a crazy amount of money for a renovation of a great room, a kitchen and some bathrooms. If there's money left there, could we put some of that towards the skate park or towards building the facilities out so that the bathrooms are in place?
If there's money left over, I think that's up to y'all of
That's
where that
I've been
is.
waiting on that.
I'm not sure what we're still pulling, giving an idea of what that cost will look like, because the community house is the back half of it where the kitchen and the bathroom, so there was only one bathroom and the community house is not ADA accessible by any means. So that's where a lot of the funds is making it ADA accessible. So I want to have full disclosure of, I'm not sure how much, if there is leftover, I think that is up to y'all. I will absolutely bring it back.
I'm concerned it won't be enough.
It's a 100-year-old stone building.
I just don't see it.
I just built a garage, so.
I hear you, but put bids together every day too.
Yeah.
The Taj,
I don't do the bids, but
the Taj Garage, right?
All right, well, maybe.
Apply any kind of grants.
yeah, that's what I'd like to see.
So we can, and this is something that I also wanted to discuss the board as well. So some of your larger grants, like the part grants and things like that. The reason why I haven't really pursued a lot of those yet is only because there's a lot of things coming down from the charter parks, including the site improvements and things like that. And because they're limited, and with these grants, if we apply for them now, there's a time limit on some of them to where in order to apply for another one, we'll have to so All right. Got me. So for example, if we apply for a part of grant, we have to wait till that project is completed, and often that, in my experience with part grants, is sometimes it takes a little bit to be awarded a new one. If you have recently been awarded the part grant, it may not hurt our chances depending on the project, but it may be, those funds may go somewhere else because we have recently been awarded. So I'm definitely open for that and seek direction from the board as, hey, we think that this is a priority. Why don't we go ahead and pursue something like that? I'm definitely open for that.
Yeah, I think it's a priority to pursue grants. I'd like us in the 24-25 budget to put general funds into the project, not beyond the bathroom. I think that we need to have some skin in this skate park as well. Sorry, that's a gross. Yeah, that's specifically why in our prior public sessions, I've voiced this as a hope for next year's budget process, that you can get your ducks in a row to have it all lined up with the nonprofit, hopefully with the grant or prospect grant, and get an understanding of what we would need out of town budget to support it. I would like us to have those three sets of funds going into it: grant funds, general funds, and nonprofit funds. But this is obviously a question for the majority of the board. So, and we're not allowed to vote in budget sessions. So, but do others want to chime in on this regard?
Well, I will if it pleases the board. Another thought is, if you are working towards a accurate forecast for 24-25, we might consider funding some schematic designs or estimates in 23-24, if that could be worked in.
Something that's not 10 years old already. Yeah, yeah. So.
And that could be something that even if we don't have that information for the current budget process, obviously we can always do a budget amendment if we have information, if the board decides to support, updating the estimates for the skate park. And that could be a budget amendment, during the upcoming fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for Katie?
Good work.
Thank you, Katie.
Humor me for a second, Katie, and talk about Katie and I recently talked about doing a project for a pollinator garden potentially, and Katie was very receptive. So we may be trying to work that into some other events she has planned.
Whereabouts?
Yeah, go ahead.
So for that, I was looking at, Town Lake Park has some really great areas, both open areas, not necessarily the fields that we have in the past utilized as a multi-purpose field, a smaller multi-purpose field, but closer to the lake that gets lots of sun and is kind of a little bit further back to where it gets still flat to where I feel like it would be protected. We always want to get, we would love to have people out there, and I think it's just a perfect spot. That was an idea one, and we're always open for any other suggestions as well.
I think that's great. And I think like a larger concept too, I guess, is as we have all these Chatham parks coming in particular, we need to figure out how we're going to pay for them for one thing, but also think about, the rest of our Parks and Rec master plan, and that we're balancing that development. Because we've got probably tens of millions of parks projects ahead of us with all this land is great. And I think we can do some things like we've done at Light Farm Community Park, where it's like a flat area that may in the future be a field, you know, there's without athletic focus or whatever, or less structured sports field that are easier to maintain, but, you know, it's a lot of money to develop and then maintain all those parks.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things too, of why, and I meant to clarify this a little bit earlier too, is that that's why I think there's such a need to ensure that we're doing public input, because whereas the designs that are coming down the line are very athletic heavy, I think that we would be doing our community a disservice. Because there's also a need, there's a large need in the community for passive recreation, pollinators, trails, outdoor classrooms, open space in general, and things like that, that I want to make sure that we're not missing, that we're hitting all spots of what our community needs as well.
I mean, I don't disagree that we need athletic parks, but it's like,
Agreed,
it
yeah.
might be that it's going to be this for a while, and then when we can afford it, we're gonna
Absolutely.
target these for athletic parks.
Absolutely.
So I do want to ask another question. This may be a tangent, but I've long puzzled over the question of where falleth the responsibilities and opportunities of greenways? And do you see in any way your work overlapping with the bike and pedestrian plan, for example?
Oh, we follow it very,
Okay.
very closely. It may be modified a little bit, depending on the flow and what's actually there. And actually coming, some sites may be a little bit different, so we may move it, or it might flow a little bit better slightly, but we follow the bike and ped plan closely. I think outside of, are you speaking of kind of outside of what Chatham Park is developing?
Yeah.
So that's really just a bandwidth challenge
right
now, is that, I'm one person and we in existence have 8 parks. So that is definitely our list. We have, Janie and I have been meeting with new trails person with Chatham County as well, to see what we can align with. We met this week and we met a couple weeks ago as well, to see, hey, in the future, what projects can we potentially come together on? And I've been open with them to say full disclosure of like, there's a lot that we have to address as well, but we are very open to having those conversations and wanting to be on the same page to see what we could do, to see if we can bring more to fruition together, versus doing our own separate projects all the time.
Mhm.
And that is focused heavily on the bike and ped plan as well.
Good. That makes a lot of sense. I'll take a moment just to call out something that there have been conversations about for years now. It was first raised to me by the former owners of the small B&B, but that is the idea of the linear park along East Street, roughly from Main Street Station, potentially all the way down to the entrance of Chatham Park. Excuse me, the Chatham Park Way. Because that DOT right of way is so wide there, some businesses have tried to stake claim to it, but then planning department has at times in the past been pretty clear with like the HVAC company near town hall. That's not public land. That is right away, and there is a concept for a linear park there. That would be a very ambitious project, I recognize, and I very much hear your point about bandwidth. But I'm wondering if we could dream about perhaps starting some preliminary planning in next year's budget for that concept. I think it's going to be the kind of project that would take a lot of coordination, obviously with NCDOT, grant funds for, I don't know, complete streets or bike ped facilities. But it's such a generous right of way that's not used for vehicular traffic that I think that we could have some really interesting things. An elaboration of your, Mayor, your work with the little park benches. I could see sculptures along the path. I could see stations for exercise along the linear park, but that was in the bike ped plan. It wasn't in the park master plan. But I'd love to continue thinking and talking about that. Not this year's budget, but hope we can just keep it on the kind of back burner for some time. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I would say, I think for greenways and stuff, the most important thing we can do is keep looking at the UDO and new development. Like I went walking in the Vineyards neighborhood this weekend, and there's a lot of, there's maybe miles of new greenway that have recently opened up there with bridges. It's a really nice spot. So I think that's the fastest way we're going to get more greenways.
Yes.
Is making sure, potentially even enhancing what we require in new neighborhoods and not letting new neighborhoods not do them, whatever that takes. And then we can, work on those connections between them. But
absolutely,
there's like I said, probably miles of greenways added to Pittsburgh in the last 2 years in the Vineyard neighborhood.
That's right. And absolutely to your point, in my consideration of the thing that I just mentioned, that's a foregone conclusion. Because when those things develop, then we're going to be left with a lack of connectivity. And this piece will connect Chatham Parkway, potentially the Thompson Street entrance of the Vineyards. It just could give us a lot more connectivity to downtown between those greenways. And if anybody ever does anything with Robeson Creek Park project, the down Industrial Drive, there's potential connectivity with that as well. So that's how that linear park was conceived, was to be that connector, east-west connector between greenways. So point well taken.
It's 11:30, and I think we need to move to Teresa Thompson unless anyone else has questions or comments for Katie. Teresa, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good morning. I have a present for you all. It's not to go over today, but I wanted to go ahead and pass it out. It's the draft work plan for fiscal year 24. And next month. So while you're looking through it over the next few weeks, if you have any questions or concerns, just call me anytime. And we can go over it. So I'll try to be as quick as I can. We thought it best to go through this fiscal year and next fiscal year, just because the bulk of the money, the funding this fiscal year has not been spent yet. We spent the first several months doing the evaluation steps, public input process. We didn't even get the work plan adopted until November 28th. So we're at a point now where there are some proposals for the money to go towards projects. So we wanted to go through those with y'all, and if you have any questions or concerns, just let us know. We want to make sure we're all on the same page with this fiscal year as well. I also wanted to mention that this work plan is coordinated with the proposed fiscal year's budget. And there is mention in there about potentials for sponsorships and grants. So even though in our proposed budget, we don't account for that, that's still what our goal is, to come under budget on several projects. So real quickly, just to go through our downtown program, there's basically two main components of it. First being what we want to achieve. So this is our community vision. Like I said, the first few months we spent July through September going through the community input process. The vision statement's written at the top of the work plan. And then the second component of our downtown program is how do we get there? So that includes long-range planning, our annual work plan, and we'll go through the Main Street's 4-point approach as time and tested, which is economic vitality, design, promotions, and organization. So typically when a Main Street budget is presented, it falls under these categories so that it's broken down where it makes a little more sense in how it falls under the 4 approaches. So with economic vitality, we're looking at strengthening the existing economic assets while diversifying the economic base. Organization is basically our executive board or executive board, which is the downtown advisory board, including the town board. The foundation of the program cultivates partnerships and community involvement. Design includes preserving, promoting, and enhancing the visual quality of downtown. And promotion includes marketing and promoting downtown as a compelling place for shoppers, investors, and visitors while boosting community excitement and involvement. So as we go through the 4 categories, this is the basics for the reasons why we broke everything down into the 4 categories. So these are our goals. So starting with the current fiscal year, again, breaking it down into the 4 categories. So under economic vitality, we have yet to spend any money towards that. Design, we have spent $5,000. So that's that first number on the left. Promotions, $4,150. Organization, $13,520. And you can see what the proposed amounts are to spend the remaining amount of the budget, which totals to $85,000. So starting with economic vitality, we are looking at having the downtown bus tour, which is in our current work plan. And also, as we already discussed, conducting a parking study. So this would look at current inventory, potential for future inventory, not just now, but up to 10 years from now, even looking at potential parking garages. How can we utilize existing parking lots that are private? So we've received a couple of quotes. The lowest quote was at 20,000, so I went ahead and put 25 just in case. And if it's under budget, I just wanted to point out that I might just purchase this Surface Pro.
What's a Surface Pro?
That's what Katie has. I just added this to the presentation.
Oh.
Because my computer is getting a little slow, so just FYI. Design, so we've spent $5,000 towards the facade grant, and proposed expenditures, we're looking at doing a painting over a crosswalk, potentially on the corner of Salisbury and Hillsborough Street. We wanted to make sure there was enough in the budget if we had to hire a professional. You can see here in Mount Airy that this was painted by volunteers, final product being on the right-hand side. We also looked at lighting options downtown. So what the design committee and the advisory board decided to move forward on is restraining the holly trees. There's been lots of issues with the lights on the holly trees. That would cost around $5,000. And speaking to Adam Pickett, he thought that the guys could do a great job at restraining them. So we could possibly do that in-house. Decision obviously hasn't been made yet, but that was his recommendation at the time. The other 2 options we looked at was roof line lighting across the rooftops. Also bistro lighting, we decided that's across the actual road. We think that's too difficult at this time since the buildings are at different elevations. But potential future streetscaping plans can incorporate lighting downtown where you have a connection at the top of the pole for the bistro light. And we've seen that in other places, and it looks really cool. So just to give you an idea of what this could look like, here's an existing picture of downtown, and here's what the roof line lighting could look like. So feel free to stop me anytime if y'all have any questions or concerns. This is what is being proposed right now with funding that's in the current year. So again, we didn't go through this process with you guys like we typically would. I started this position in July and it was already given the budget that was approved. So no projects like this were included in it. So, if you need more time to think about it too, feel free to call me afterwards, but we did want to make sure that everybody was on the same page with moving forward with these project ideas.
Teresa, what's the goal of the roof line lighting?
The additional aesthetics of downtown. It was just part of the lighting options. So we looked at either restringing the trees, the rooftop lights, or the bistro. That's how it was presented. The design committee and the advisory board loved the idea of the rooftop lighting. There's also a strong connection to the lights on the street trees as well. So it turned into both options that they would like to pursue.
I'll just say, like, I think we spend a lot of money on the street tree lights and maintaining them. Cutting and trimming the tree, the electricity for them every time they go out, going to I mean, it's probably $10,000 a year, it seems like, from this
I'm gonna say more than that.
with staff time, to do that. So I mean, restringing is one thing, but then making sure they're up, I assume we pay for electricity, all these things, like that's a lot of money. Maybe it's better spent on roof line lights, I guess, I don't know, but
And just so you know, I mean, when Teresa and I talked about it, they still have not approached all the businesses, because obviously older businesses would need to agree to that.
Right.
Because it's on their facades.
Right.
And we probably would need them to potentially sign something saying that they're okay with us putting something on their facade.
Sure.
And if they don't all agree to it, then we wouldn't do it, because obviously it's not gonna look good if it's only partially done.
Right. I think it might be more value in doing it at a specific time of year and sort of making, I've seen that in other places where it's sort of a destination of at a time of year, likely in the winter, we, do this on our downtown, we put a bunch of lights up and we do this and maintain it for a month or two. Rather than because I was noticing just drive through town last night, like they look a little rough right now.
Yeah. Part of the reason for that is the prior tree service company that we were using.
Right.
They retired. We were able to find another company. We called around to at least 5 places. And we found one that was not only interested, but very excited to do the work. And I think they did an amazing job cutting the trees, trimming the trees. We have heard a lot of comments though on the lighting being put up. So, talking to Adam, we thought that would be a way to save money, because we're charged for not only the trimming of the trees, but for the contractor to also restring the trees.
Sure.
So if we were to do that in-house, that would save, several thousands of dollars a year. And on the rooftop lighting, we checked on what that maintenance would look like. Typically, you might do, one bulb out every so many months. And the company that we would be looking at using, they charge a very minimal fee to come out. It's an hourly fee to go and replace bulbs as needed. So it would not be much of a cost on the maintenance side for the rooftops, from what we understand. So just to give a little more information.
I just want to think overall with all the things we want to do downtown, what percentage do we spend on lights year round? And what value do we get out of that compared to other things?
Sure, and I can put together some more information for you guys on that as well. And bring it back to you.
I think that's a good idea, is having a comprehensive view of downtown investments and ongoing expenditures. Yeah. And then perhaps we can get a better sense of what gives the greatest bang for the buck. I mean, I think a lot of people really enjoy the tree lights. It does definitely give a distinct vibe. The holly tree is symbolic for our town. I'm intrigued by the rooftop lights. I'm more intrigued about the cross-street bistro lights. The vibe that sets at the Piedmont Industrial site, the, what's it called? The plant. Beverage District, that's a really special vibe, the illumination overhead at night. And I have kind of longed for that in our downtown area. I would think that if it didn't require a tremendous amount of engineering, but maybe some props on one side or the other to balance that off, we certainly wouldn't want to have it installed not parallel to the ground. That would look weird, but I think it'd be good to think about that some more, maybe keep that on the burner. But I also want to be very respectful of the advisory board and how they are weighing in on these priorities, because I feel like that's the critical body.
All three options were very highly received, and everyone was very excited about the bistro idea.
Yeah.
After meeting with a couple of contractors, it was obvious how difficult it would be logistically to do it, and that it would be, you know, quite a bit more money than doing the rooftop lining, so.
Yeah.
But I can come back to you with some more information on that, and then depending on if we're able to do additional streetscaping downtown, that could be something that we could look at incorporating the bistro lighting, you know, in lieu of the rooftop possibly, so
Or maybe a bigger project next year,
possibly.
both at the same time.
Right.
If you're getting up on roofs.
I think we're looking at it from the perspective of this is what's in this year's budget.
Sure.
We don't want, you know, we'd rather the money go towards a project that has a tangible
Immediate
effect
tangible,
downtown.
yes.
Especially since what we've been doing for so many months is the evaluation
Yes.
step. We'd love to implement something
Yes.
that could be shown for, you know, everyone's hard work this year.
Mhm.
So, so long as that money's still available, then, then we could look at, you know, other options as well.
Yeah.
So,
Can we look back for just a moment to the bus tour and help us understand? I've never even heard of this concept, so
okay, I've done this before, in another place that I worked, and, basically, we all get on a bus, everyone would be invited, all the board members, all the town board members, downtown advisory board members, design committee. Depending on who all could go, we probably fit about 20 people on a bus. We talked to Chatham Transit, and we're working out the details on that. But we would choose several downtowns within driving distance that we could visit within a day.
Okay.
And we've looked at going to Sanford, Fuquay, Apex, Carrboro, Hillsborough, possibly Durham. So kind of doing like a loop around. And you can watch somewhere in between. So you basically, you make a stop, everyone comes out of the bus, and we meet with like the downtown director, town manager. They give us a tour of their downtown, walk around, and then go to the next stop. So it's just a informational gathering.
Got it. Okay.
Trip.
I thought it was a tour of our downtown.
Oh, yes, we've already done a walking tour downtown with the design committee.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
sorry.
It's a great idea.
Just to touch on the lights a little bit more, not dominate this conversation, but like, if it's hard, but it's better, then let's do it.
Yeah.
Or if it's hard, but it's more expensive, then let's do it.
Yeah. Yes,
Eventually, at least.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be the bistro and the rooftop, it would be either or.
Correct. I think that would
Bistro
be
is so much more
too much lighting.
Aesthetically.
But I mean, we'll talk about, but like, I don't understand if we're gonna be able to get permission from every building to put lights along the building, how it's that much harder to string lights across, if that's what we want, really.
If you look at the buildings on either side, there's just not a clear, if there were 3 places along Hillsborough Street where it was like a 2-story and a 2-story that matched up, it would be a lot simpler to do. We just, when we walked down it with the consultants, we realized we just didn't have that downtown, that option.
But a pole with a guy wire, I mean, engineering can be done. So, yeah.
Okay.
I also wanted to cheer and applaud the sidewalk painting concept. That's something that a lot of people have mentioned to me as a traffic calming measure. Our HOA president in Chatham Forest is interested in considering doing that in Chatham Forest. So it's another way that Pittsburgh can show our creativity and our local color, and literally, and it does present that visual interruption of the driving space to slow people down. So it's effective in a number of different ways, and I applaud it. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, the design committee, that was something they were super excited about. And just to explain too, that even though we know that there's gonna be a resurfacing of Hillsborough Street, that is several years down the road. At that point, it would have to be touched up or redone anyways. So we felt that if we move forward on that project now, we would still get several years worth of visibility from it.
Yeah.
And that it would still be worth the project, moving forward on it.
Wonderful.
So promotions, we spent some funding on mostly events at this point. So before, when Chris was still here, we went ahead and moved forward on a contract with the website. It's the same website that the Main Street was using. We realized that the Proud Main Street program, we realized that it was a lot less expensive to just revamp that versus starting from scratch. So we went ahead with the intention of doing that, having a contract put up. So we approved. So we've been paying towards this $150 a month, which is in the contract for maintenance fees. So just so if you're questioning what's that for, that's why we've been paying on that. So we have not received the approval to move forward on those updates, which would cost about $3,000. But that's something that I would not be able to do. The web hoster would have to do that herself. There's going to be a lot that we can update in-house, but those are things that I wouldn't be able to. So the advisory board, there was definitely a majority, there was a vote on it that they wanted to pursue a freestanding website. There's pros and cons to both, which, I completely understand. We already have a town website. We can utilize it. The reasons to possibly go to a freestanding website is it's an easier way to have more exposure for the downtown. And it aesthetically too, you can make it look a lot more interesting where it's specific to the downtown, the pictures, the links and everything. So we wanted to put that as a proposed expenditure, bring that to this board. We talking to Kent and Heather, we all thought that this would be the best way to move forward on this, just to see, if there were any concerns that we move forward with the website at this point, since this wasn't in the proposed budget originally. And that would include another $600 in website maintenance. We also met with the Triangle Media group that they do the Chatham Magazine, relocation guides, several magazines and online content. So we're proposing $3,000 towards advertising. We're looking to do a cleanup event in June. So this would include cleaning up the future town hall site, doing power washing, which that's what that cost would be for. If we have to hire someone, there's several people, including myself, that have power washers that we've already said that we would, work with doing for free. And updating the rain garden. We have a landscape architect that would help us with that. And also a litter cleanup crew. So we're looking to move forward on that in June. And then possibly another sip and stroll. It might not be until July or August, since the town decided to take a step back and really update all of our ordinances, policies, and applications first. But even if it is at the beginning of next fiscal year, there's going to be some upfront costs. And those pictures were from the first sip and stroll, which we had bags made, stickers, and a puppy kissing booth, which was very popular. And lastly, organization. So typical amount of funds expended. Tables was the biggest expense since we didn't have any at the downtown. office, and the Main Street Conference, 5 of us went, so the chair of the advisory board and all the chairs of the committees came. So the 5 of us went to Statesville for 3 days, which was great. So some minimal proposed expenditures there. So are there any, at this point, are there any questions or concerns about moving forward with the proposed expenditures, or would you like more time and we can bring it back to you again?
I'd like to offer a thought on the website. I think that sounds reasonable. I'm glad that staff and the board think that using the existing infrastructure on the website is worthwhile. Some cost concept, let's build on what we've already built. I do personally find I don't know, some thoughts, I won't say concerns about an independent website to the extent that it may not be discoverable, or to the extent that it may not be publicized and spread and seen. And so a website is only as useful as it is promoted in social media and using search engine optimization. I would really love it if some attention could be paid to the latter, search engine optimization, because I think a lot of people are Googling for Pittsburgh and not necessarily finding Pittsburgh. They're finding the things where people are investing lots of money to promote Chatham Park or what have you. That's just the way Googling works, is that you receive visibility for what people are paying to see. And if it's a worthwhile investment in terms of website, I think it's also a worthwhile investment in terms of publicizing that website,
Correct.
making it sure. So,
And it would be, and that's actually part of the reason why we wanted to look at the freestanding. I've done a couple of test searches just to see if I type in downtown Pittsburgh, where our current website comes in. It's usually like 5th or 6th. So the goal would be, we have a website that's dedicated downtown Pittsburgh. We bring all the information from all different organizations into one place, and we do promote it, that it would be top of the list when you do a search.
cool. And when you test that, I'm glad to hear you're testing it. Are you using a new browser or incognito mode?
What does that mean?
So when you use your search engine, cookies are stored on your computer that give you more searches the way that you previously searched.
Correct, yes.
So in order to get an accurate reading on a test like that, you need to use an independent browser, a new browser you don't usually use, or incognito mode.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
When I originally did it, that's what happened, but as I've done it more, it has gone higher, so I think that's.
Get a fresh look.
Yes, so I'll make sure. we do that.
Thank you. It's a brave new world.
I don't think those two things are exclusive either. I think we will have, like, on pittsburghnc.gov, we'll have a downtown page that talks, that probably more focused on forums and stuff and links to, but I don't think that people are, to find out about the stores downtown, they're not going to think to go to the .gov site.
Yeah.
So I think that's right. They work together and kind of feed each other. But, and I guess just to be clear on this, with like fiscal year 23, so you're showing us what you spent already and what you plan to spend
Until
before July. So these are not budget requests for next year.
Correct.
Okay.
And so from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you would like more information on the lighting and possibly the website as well. So if that's the case.
So just from a finance perspective, I just want you to know that the cost of that website is very close to the cost that we pay for the whole town website.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
So
surprised to
that's
hear that we're spending 150 a month for to maintain a website that doesn't exist.
Well, that was
I don't know how we
the intent was
not,
to do it
but like,
sooner.
overall, I'm excited to talk about a budget for next year, so we don't have to talk about all of these little expenditures. all the time.
Yes.
I thought, I was confused a little bit, on going over, I guess, but
Yeah, we just thought that would be the most transparent way to present to you at this time.
Yeah, thank you.
we didn't want everyone to not be on the same page of moving forward, after the fact, so. And with this being our first budget proposal, I went into a little more detail, but I won't go through each one, moving forward for fiscal year 24, so I'll try to go through this quickly. So with the proposed budget, currently, you can see the numbers broken down, with the combined total of 182,870. I realize that's a little different than what's in the packet. I think that has to do with us ironing out what's going in whose budget. There's some items that we weren't sure, do they go in Parks and Recs? Do they go in Public Works? So there's a little wiggle room there, which I highlighted. So for economic vitality, proposed expenditures, you can see social district possibly if we were to move forward on that. Startup packet, vision, phase 2 vision plan or master plan. That would be, a big chunk of what the request is, that 60,000, which I'm hoping it would come out to be less than that, more like 50,000. But the quote that we received was at 50. So hopefully that'll come in less. A new program, which would be a building rehab grant, that would be the interior of buildings. Working with the small business center on classes, which, we're really excited to do that. And then have an annual luncheon/awards. We've heard ideas of volunteering award and beautification awards. We looked at using the other side of the mod. We think that would be a great location. So a potential budget amendment after we're done the parking lot study, there would be potential to have parking lot agreements with private properties. So there's a potential for that. So that's not in the budget. That's just for you to, for future reference. Design, we don't have an artwork project specified yet, 5,000 for that. Possibly updating the Welcome to Pittsburgh sign. We need to look at what kind of state it's in, but there's been a lot of comments. The one that's across the street from the hospital site, so it's kind of pushed back. We would also look at trying to bring that closer to the road. And
Oh, the billboard.
yes,
Great.
and we talked about making that list of all the annual special events.
Wonderful.
For the-
It looks shabby.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that like town or is that a private sign? I don't know when that was put up.
I thought that was a Main Street project a long time ago. I think that's what I was told. So,
But the property owner is still willing to
oh yeah, that's
host
Greg
it.
Stafford. Yeah, she would
and-
be willing to move it so long as it works, logistically.
Yeah.
And it meets UDO requirements.
Yeah.
So, but I'll double check on that.
Okay.
Streetscape plan, so like Heather mentioned, we're waiting to hear back from DOT on what kind of funding they're gonna give to the program. But basically from one building frontage to the other building frontage across Hillsborough Street, it's all DOT right away. So we're hoping that they're gonna help fund ADA related accessibility issues, like the steps, not having ramps, the crosswalks, the sidewalks. So that's what we're hoping for. If they were to do that, there could be some additional options for updating utilities and, if the sidewalks are gonna be redone. So DOT said they would wait for us on doing the streetscape plan if that's the direction we go in. We're still waiting. There's a lot of information that we're still waiting on to determine if you guys want to move forward on the streetscape plan for the next fiscal year. So hopefully we'll get that to you soon. 10,000 for facade grants, 10,000 for mural grants. That would be 50/50 match. And looking at some pool banner replacements. So the 3 next items are what we discussed. We're not sure exactly which budget that would fall under if we were to do it, but the traffic circle, there's been, lots of comments about, is it being maintained correctly? And is that something that we need to outsource? So we did get a quote, it was pretty high, it's $2,000 a month, that would include replacement of plants, and that would be for the rain garden as well. But, if we were to move forward on doing this in-house, obviously it would not be that. be towards next budget year. And we weren't sure, maybe that needs to go in the parking rights budget, so that's kind of in limbo right now. Page Green Park, there's drainage repairs that need to be made, basically when there's a car line, the adjacent property, the carpet is wet, floods, so that does need to be fixed. And then directional signage, we included that in the proposed budget, but that is a project that Chatham Park did give verbal confirmation that they would be willing to move forward on. So if that's the case, it would be a reimbursement. And then potential budget amendments, possibly another crosswalk mural, the 2.5 million for the streetscape improvements. That's, again, we're waiting for that with DOT, and if that's something that we'd be interested in, what we'd be interested in moving forward on. We worked with engineering on coming up with some preliminary costs, but that would include sidewalks, having a retaining wall in lieu of the steps, grading, drainage, utility relocations. Hopefully, those items would be covered within that, at what we're looking at preliminarily. We also, last October, when we heard about the rural transformation grant, this was one project we thought about. We had a 1 month turnaround, so we thought this was something that we could apply for potentially. And we worked with Hobbs Architects on a very preliminary drawing, basically just a simple outdoor venue type space. But if this is something the board is interested in moving forward on, we did put some preliminary numbers in the budget for that. Of course, it's very preliminary at this point. So we had one department head level meeting about this where I explained the premise of the project. We decided to move forward on Lewis Freeman Park instead, since that was more at CD level. And then possibly hanging baskets downtown. Promotion, I won't go through all of these, but it's basically broken down in promotional marketing materials, special events related. These would be specific to town events. And then at the bottom there's the 30,000 that was or could still be in the town board special events fund. There has been discussion on, is this something that could fall into the downtown advisory board's purview? And also creating a more equitable way to apply for this, where we have an application there's a deadline for it. Everyone would apply by a certain date. So we have an idea of what the proposal would be throughout the year. That way it's not so much as first come, first served.
Yeah.
So we did put some numbers together on what we were expecting to be asked. So, that's what that 30,000 is for. And again, that's not in our proposed budget right now. That's still in the town board's special events funds. So that would be up to the board if you decided to relocate that into downtown. And then, like I was saying with the application process, staff can also assist organizations with marketing of events. So if you were looking at around 5,750 for providing additional marketing for events, that way there's not a perception that we're picking and choosing who we're doing this for. So that could include boosting, Facebook boostings of events, ads, table tents, banners.
I think just to talk about what you mentioned there, like, I think it is critical that we get to some type of method for saying what town is going to sponsor as events and how we're going to deal with events that we don't sponsor that are still good events. Because, we should know now what's going to happen next spring as a town sponsored event in Pittsburgh, and we should fund it. And so, I think we got to have a process for how we do that. We got to have some basic requirements for nonprofits that receive, or anyone that receives funding from the town, particularly nonprofits, generally, not just related to downtown. We've got to get to that, like, for a few reasons. Like, we can't keep coming to us and saying we need $500 for this, and, you know, it's not a good use of board time. And then also just for promotion of these events, if we're gonna put all the events on a billboard, for example, we gotta know what they are, you know, well ahead of time. If they're big enough events, that the town will sponsor them, you know, there should be lead up and planning to them. And I think I'm in favor of taking that money out of the town board side and putting it in the downtown side once we have a process in place. And I'm hesitant to see once you choose the events, you know, until we have that in place too, so.
That's a good point, which we are working on, so we should have that short.
Okay.
That process, the application, basically the whole policy behind that, we'll be presenting that to you in the future.
Okay, right, because I think, I mean, any spending of public money, we need to be very, very clear about it. It's more efficient, but it's also just the way we should be doing it.
Lastly,
What is Pittsburgh?
oh, so this came up during our holidays committee meetings. It's an event. It can be at different times of the year. What we were thinking though would be a shopping event geared more towards men. And there could be an area where there's beer vendors, cigars, hangout area with a band, possibly lists, like lists drawn up by family members of what to buy at certain stores to make it easier, providing gift wrapping. So there's lots of ideas, but that was one that everyone seemed really excited about moving forward on. So this was something though that looking at the town's, you know, ability to put on, I'm not a special events coordinator, you know, I tell as many people as I can that. So I went ahead and made it pretty clear that this is not something that the town could possibly take on. So this is possibly something that another organization can do. And we're having that conversation on which organization would be willing to head this up. Not that I wouldn't help, but so that's why it's listed under this category and not at the top.
And I think that's also something that, I mean, we've talked about as a department head level, maybe getting direction from the board in terms of the focus of downtown, the focus of the downtown department, like, and how many events are town events and how many are we sponsoring, you know, I mean, or that in there, because there does have to be a distinction, obviously, between a town event and a sponsored event. And, you know, obviously it needs to be very clear and stuff, so that, anyway, that's sort of the direction, you know, how much of town, you know, time, resources are, do we want to be spending on events or other downtown, you know, like, should it be events or should it be, you know, I mean,
Right.
you know,
I
sort
think
of
it's a good,
the ratio of time and money that should be spent on those types of things, you know,
Who's responsible too,
Right.
insurance wise, yeah.
yeah, and so it's obviously being, you know, for us, I mean, that's what we've been having, and that's why we need to be working on these policies that, you know, we want to get in place before we're doing a lot of other new town events, but also other events that we are sponsoring or that are just happening in town.
yeah, I think there's probably like 4 levels. Like, you know, there's like maybe 1 to 3 events a year that are town events. And then there, or whatever we decide, but then there's events that the town would sponsor, you know, formally provide financial support to. There's events that we would advertise and boost and market and whatever. And then there's events that we would specifically not do that for various reasons.
Sure.
So, you know, but I think there's got to be, you know, various levels of applications, various lengths of applications for those types of events. And we got to get further out with those plans so we can align other things.
And just to give you an idea for this upcoming fiscal year, we had a subcommittee meet about the specific subject.
Mhm.
And we decided logistically, maybe one event that the advisory board, you know, promotions committee would take on the majority of the responsibility, which then would be a town event. So like our last promotions committee, we invited Katie to start that collaboration and how can we work together on this one, potentially one event. Because we don't want to say we're going to do 5 new events next year. Obviously we don't have the capacity for that. So that's the goal, is one new event, and that is in the work plan. So that, that's what we're working towards. It's really, we don't have much beyond that at this point though. And then lastly is organization. So it's basic supplies, membership dues, trainings. I did want to mention one thing. It's pretty minor, but I have a lot of lunch meetings with people. It's the last of the list. That's just a preference for business owners. It's a lot more convenient for them to run out for lunch to meet. And I have been spending, my own personal money on that. So I know we don't have a policy in place for that, but I went ahead and put it in place in case we were to have a policy. So that is just one thing I would ask the board to consider. That would, average 2 lunches a month, basically, but I have a lot more. So that's just something that, it's pretty minor, but it would be something that would help me personally.
Are we allowed to do that?
So, for our current policy, which it falls under our travel policy, is for the expenses for lunch. For our current policy, no, so you're not, we typically don't pay, the town doesn't pay for lunch meetings, or if you're scheduling that, because we're not requiring you to schedule a lunch meeting. So, and again, that can be amended, but I personally, my feeling is that I want to spend as little of taxpayer money on lunches that, or food, or, in general, just because it can get out of hand quite quickly. So Fayetteville was in the news a few months ago where they had spent, and I know they're much larger, but they had spent a lot on food purchases. And so anyway, that's where our current policy stands, is that we pay for food when you are traveling for a class or training, but we do not pay, like if we were to schedule a regular department head meeting at lunchtime, we would not provide everybody lunch, because if it's all, town staff, that's not appropriate. So,
and I was told that I could do that when I first started this position, and the first time that I did it, Heather informed me that even though you were told that was okay, it's policy-wise, it's not okay. So I haven't done it since then. But I can say, like, in my previous position, I never had a lunch meeting. It was developers would come to the office. It's just a different dynamic when you're working with a majority of business owners, and you're questioned all the time, well, let's have lunch together. And my response is, well, no, I'm sorry, let's just meet at my office. It's difficult to have that conversation every time. So
I saw you out again this weekend. You were definitely doing business.
yes, yeah, we were at Phoenix. It happens quite often.
and we definitely wouldn't be able to pay for the business owners lunch.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
This would be just covering Teresa, but again, so our current policy states that, that's not allowable. Our travel policy does need to be updated, because the rates that we currently have in it are outdated for, so that's something, and you can look at, I don't know, various municipalities do it differently, so it's not that it's against the law, it's just that's, anyway.
I'm not opposed to a policy update for things like that, but I recognize it's difficult to maintain control. It can be depending on the policy.
And I don't let anyone pay for my lunch either.
Yeah,
I'm on right now
that's
all
good.
the time.
I think that's wise. And I think it's perfectly understandable, your challenge here. I very much relate to it, in fact. And I can certainly understand how business owners or managers, they're short of time. And so multitasking for them, feeding themselves while being able to meet makes a lot of sense. And so I appreciate the request. I feel similar to Commissioner Shipp. I'm open to it. I also appreciate Heather's point that there needs to be a policy. And so, yeah. Enough said.
Well, thank you. Unless you have any other questions.
Yeah, if we could go back, I think it's 3 slides.
Design?
Yeah, here's where I was, and on the prior slide, I think as well, I was having some questions. Where are we generally with the idea that there is a need for a very major, very ambitious project with multiple stakeholders and property owners to rehabilitate the backsides of Hillsborough Street?
That has been discussed. So we have what I have, like, I call it the big idea book
Yeah,
in my office, and that is in it. It's just going through what the priorities are of,
sure.
you know, what can we do in a certain fiscal year?
Mhm.
We have a draft plan for fiscal year 25 already. So, you know, we just have to prioritize each year, and that one was not specifically, you know, at the top of the list for this year. We can reevaluate that. There's still time. This is just draft. But for facade grants, you know, that can include rear.
Yes, but that would be on a piecemeal basis.
Correct.
And I think there's probably a need for engineering back there. I mean, like civil engineering and major stuff. As I've heard it envisioned, that drainage issues, parking issues, consolidation of trash collection, making the space as nice and pleasant as Page Vernon Park, for example, hardscaping. I think it's a really important vision. I think it's a really important concept to keep on the burner. And I recognize that it's going to be incredibly challenging because of all the stakeholders, all the property owners, utilities, et cetera. So I guess I would like to encourage you to ask the board if there's a stepwise process into which one could work that, like, could we seek a grant for not a feasibility, but an early preliminary plan before actual design drawing stage?
Well, now I will say that our phase 2 of the vision plan, the whole purpose of that is that our current vision plan is not as, well, for one, it started in 2014. And it did not include a ton of public input process. So we know that we need to incorporate that more. And it's not very lot by lot specific. You know, it does touch on certain parts of downtown, but the size of our downtown, we think it's definitely possible to look at it lot by lot and what can we do specifically with infill and the rear size of buildings. And so that was discussed with the potential consultant group, that we would like to do that for the phase 2 of the vision plan.
Okay, good.
And that's the whole purpose of that, and how can downtown expand as well in the future.
Yeah, there's a,
Sorry, I want to ask a
Please.
clarifying question. So what is your vision in terms of what the town, because those are obviously old private property.
that's right.
So,
Yep.
but
But-
how would the town facilitate that? Because obviously we should, that's why we have the grants.
Yeah.
So what's your vision in terms
See,
of
the collection of property owners themselves, I think it's very unlikely that they are going to coalesce around such a really massive, with broad implications, project. I mean, it's 2 sides of the street. It's covering multiple properties. So I think that is an appropriate area for a downtown Main Street program staffer to start work towards coalescing those various stakeholders seeking grant funds, I believe that USDA does cover this kind of work with grant funds and loan funds, even though it's on private property.
So not that.
Rural business
not that
development,
we're Putting funds towards it, but we're putting town time towards it. Is that? what you're
perhaps, and perhaps funds too.
saying? Okay.
You know, if that's what it requires to get a charrette, a design charrette, so that everybody's in agreement. See, I'm going back to, I'm just going to be really blunt. Randy Voller and his crew in their original downtown vision plan had a vision for rehabilitating the backsides of those properties. Jay, I don't even think you were consulted. That's the issue. There were property owners who weren't consulted, but it is a good idea. There is a lot of aesthetic improvement that could be gained from such a project. There's a lot of facilitation and organizing that needs to happen. And it's going to be extremely expensive. And to the extent that public funds can be justified for that work, utilities improvement, et cetera, we need to up our game up against Mosaic.
And I
You
think
see,
we
so-
just have to be careful, obviously, about expending public funds for a small set of private property owners that would
Mhm.
obviously, that improves their property value.
Sure.
It's not, and maybe that helps us obviously with additional tax revenue, but I think that's why we have the sub grants that are a matching grant. And I think you have to just be, that's my one caution, that we have to be very careful about how we're spending public funds in that way.
Yeah.
So I think,
from a piecewise process, like you're talking about, I think Teresa described the good steps of a parking study to start on immediately, and then the
Yes.
update of the downtown vision plan. And that will develop priorities. One of those may be the rehabilitation of the backside. It
Good.
may be
Okay.
adding a 5-story building behind those buildings or something.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
I don't want to run down the road of papers back there and then, we tear them out for the parking. garage.
Yes, yes, I agree. I
So
agree.
I think we have the right steps in this plan here to
Okay.
update the previous one.
All right.
So.
Yes, I want to
Okay.
make sure that's addressed.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Thank you.
There's one question quick. The facade program, what is the time limit between, if one business owner or landlord has one this year? When is the next year that they can apply for another? For the, some have said many want to change their awnings, well,
Sure,
I mean,
they can apply anytime. So
you go 1 year and get a facade grant, the next year and get another one.
we still have, and that's a good point, I'm glad you brought that up. There was $15,000 in the facade grant line item for this year. That's just where Chris put like 4,000 in contracted services, 15 in facade grants. It's not like we knew there were so many projects lined up. He just put that in there. So technically, we still have the money in that line item for that specifically, if someone would like to use it. We would just have to shift things around a little bit on how we're planning on using the remainder of the money, but we can do that.
but we don't, in the application front, there's not like, you don't have to wait like 3 or 5 years to apply for another one. You can apply for.
Oh, you're
whatever.
asking if one person applies when they can apply again?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't think so. I don't remember reading that. That they can apply again.
I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, it may be an adjustment.
Yeah.
I mean, because it stands to reason that there'll be some time.
It's an application and
Yeah.
a judgment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you said, I want to do one for the front and now I want to do it for the back.
Oh, yeah, that-
And we don't, we've got money, we don't have we evaluate all the applications as we get them and try and use the money to improve things. So, but if somebody said, hey, I replaced my awnings last year, now I want to make it red, I would hope we would
Yeah.
approve that.
Right, I
application.
agree. I agree.
Right.
Yeah.